o'clock. That means it's research in Manoa. And we have Dennis Hwang. He's with the University of Hawaii Sea Grant College, which is that part of SOEST?
Yes.
Okay. All things actually are part of SOEST. I think SOEST is the kahuna there.
That's right. And it's actually part of NOAA, too. The
NOAA,
National
part of NOAA.
Oceanic Atmospheric Administration.
So this is a very important organization, and they care about us, and that's the point. It's not just research on the far end. It's always research with a view to protecting the community, especially now in the days of climate change. So tell us your position at SOEST and the Sea Grant College, Dennis.
Okay, I'm an extension faculty at University of Hawaii Sea Grant College program. I do a lot of outreach. We write a lot of books on how to prepare for natural hazards. And this one we're gonna be talking about shortly is specifically for homeowners. But before that, we've done some on how to prepare for hazards in the development process itself. So it covers a little wider range. Yeah.
Okay, this is Research in Manoa, and we're preparing for the worst. That's my title for the show,
Okay,
Preparing for the
sure.
Worst. And the worst means tsunamis, hurricanes, earthquakes, and floods, all of which have happened and could again happen. And in my very limited perception of it, you know, every day that is a nice day is a day closer to the next calamity.
Right.
One of those things. And as you mentioned just a moment ago, June 1st is an important day close to the summer solstice, which is the day on which we plan for hurricanes and the like. It's the season.
Right.
The season for hurricanes begins June 1st. So as we get closer, and it's only, what, 6 weeks away, we're gonna find that this becomes more and more relevant.
Right.
Okay, so the book is entitled Homeowners, Handbook to Prepare for Natural Hazards by Dennis Hwang and Darren Okimoto. He's your colleague at the Sea Grant College.
Yes, he's head of extension, and actually currently he's he just became deputy director for Sea Grant.
Okay.
Yes.
And I guess it's important to understand what extension is. Extension, like so many other departments and offices in the university, you have research, you have teaching, you have extension.
Okay, that's a good question. The mission of Sea Grant, and there are 33 Sea Grant programs throughout the country. They're all sponsored, affiliated with NOAA. Okay, but their mission is to take research that's in the university and bring it out into the community. Because a lot of times, research that's being conducted, whether it be for a hazard or weather impacts or whatever, it's not, it may not be very applicable to the community. So it's our goal to take this information, put it in a form that's easily to digest by members of the community, and then encourage them and also do outreach and extension to teach them, the results of the research.
Okay, so this book is actually for the average homeowner.
That's right.
And it's a how to do it book. And in case anybody was wondering, qu'est-ce que c'est que ça? This is looks like steel to me.
Yeah.
It's a steel bracket that you use to hold your roof on.
Yeah, that's actually called it's a Simpson strong tie, Hawaii plantation hurricane tie. It was specially made for houses in Hawaii, specifically single wall houses, which are very vulnerable to wind damage. And with this clip, almost every single wall house in the state could be retrofitted to make it a lot stronger, for hurricanes.
So this will hold your roof on?
Yes, essentially. And you'll see when we talk about the hurricane season last year, there was 3 major systems coming by that could have been a significant threat. And if any of those were to have hit Oahu, there could have been a lot of damage, a lot of roof damage, and something like this would have prevented that.
Okay, and the book covers more than just these steel brackets, these hurricane clips.
Sure.
The book has all kinds of advice on how you build and reinforce your house, from the bottom to the top, and there's lots of advice. It's a kind of a book you could buy at the hardware store because it's a hardware and house construction kind of book. So it's very directed at the homeowner who cares about making his house secure.
Right, right. And they could buy it at the
Is that
hardware
right?
store, but actually they can't buy it because we give it to them for free.
Yeah.
And they could download it for free as a PDF file at the University of Hawaii Sea Grant website. And who essentially pays for this book are the 20 or so partners that are in the book. So this particular book has gone through 9 print runs with 75,000 copies. And the last print run was done, this is the 3rd edition. The last print run was done 3 months ago, and it was paid by FEMA, the Building Science Branch, and also the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency, formerly Hawaii State Civil Defense.
And the thing is, this book is not, academic, hard to read.
No.
This book is written and it's got a lot of graphics in it,
Right.
a lot of photographs in it
Right.
to show you.
Yeah, it's we tried to make it very graphical, and there's actually a fair amount of engineering concepts in this book, but we present it in a way that the homeowner can understand why it's important to do some of these things and how to do them.
Yeah.
And it not only does the book cover retrofit of houses, the beginning of the book covers the hazard risk in Hawaii. So it'll cover what's the history of, say, hurricanes in Hawaii, what's the history of tsunamis, earthquakes, and flooding. We worked a lot with National Weather Service, the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, and some other agencies. We explain the actual hazard themselves, and then we go into emergency supplies and evacuation planning, which is very important.
That goes beyond just preparing the house.
Yes, everyone should have an evacuation plan. They don't realize they need an evacuation plan for both a hurricane and a tsunami because they're different. Yes.
Yeah.
And then the last part of the book goes in how do you strengthen your house, because your house really provides protection for your family and essentially all your other possessions.
Yeah. My in-laws lost their roof in Iniki. It was really terrible.
Yeah.
The thing just lifted off, and then they were living in a house without a roof, and they had to put bisqueen plastic on the top for months because the insurance didn't come through, and it's hard to find a contractor to refit the roof.
Yeah.
Suffice to say, they would have been better off with this kind of preparation.
That's right. See, the problem when Iniki came by, there were a lot of houses where the roof was attached to the wall by simply toe-nailing the roof onto the wall. It's just like nailing nails from the rafter into the wall, and they call that toe-nailing. It's very easy to pull out because
You can pull it out
you
with
can
your
just pull
hands.
out with a hammer or whatever. But now the concept of a hurricane clip is that they're attached not parallel to the attachment, but perpendicular. So in order for it to pull out, it almost has to share the fastener. Okay, so after Iniki,
And this isn't going to shear very easily.
no, it's not.
This is heavy steel.
Yeah. After Iniki, first of all, there were 7,000 houses that were damaged or destroyed after Iniki. A lot of them roof damage. The roofs just pulled out because of the toe nailing. Okay. After Iniki, they changed the building code to require not only hurricane clips, which these are, but also what they call in structural engineering terms, a continuous load transfer path, which connects the roof all the way to the foundation of the house. It's almost like you're throwing a rope around the roof of the house and tying it down, but instead of doing it externally, it's all internally through the building
So
codes.
there are clips all the way down, connecting
Yes,
every piece.
yes.
You know, like, it's like that old song about the arm bone is connected to the hand bone.
That's exactly right.
Everything's connected.
Yes, everything is connected strong. So that's, a lot of the changes in our building codes happened after Hurricane Eva in '82 on Kauai, and after Hurricane Iniki in '92 on Kauai, okay? So.
You talked about risk, and you talked about the lessons we've learned in
Yeah.
2014, only a few months ago, from Isela, Julio, and ultimately Anna.
Yes.
In that year. So, and those were mild, you know, honestly, Dennis, those were mild.
Yes.
No, you know, the press was waiting for some raw meat on that, never really happened, but there was some damage, and we did learn some lessons. What were those lessons?
Okay, there were a lot of lessons learned, and we do a lot of outreach with regard to this book every year, maybe 20 or 30 workshops, classes a year, just communities that ask for it. And we find that generally the people who prepare the least are the people on Oahu. Probably the people who prepare most are on Kauai because they've been hit twice. But for some reason, people on Oahu do not feel like they're susceptible. But in 2014, we really dodged 3 major bullets. And it wasn't that bad because we were fortunate. But let me explain to you, and maybe later I could show you some graphs about it.
After the break, we'll come back and look at some. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay, so the first one, in August, remember we had 2 or 3 systems coming through, including Genevieve, Iselle, and Julio, okay? So with regard to Iselle, we're very fortunate because most scientists, the National Weather Service projected that 2 days before landfall, most of the models actually had it hitting Oahu. What happened though, instead of hitting Oahu, it hit a much less densely populated area on the Big Island, and it weakened, okay? So that's very fortunate because Iselle could have easily carried forward on its path and hit Oahu. And then right behind Iselle was Julio, okay? Julio could have been very damaging also because it was carrying the same track, and unlike Iselle, it did not weaken to a tropical storm. It was still a Category 2 when it passed east of us. And if it just moved a little more to the south, it would have, and hit Oahu, that could have been a major damage, okay, as a Category 2 hurricane. Now, remember Valentine's Day this year, we had all those wind events on the windward coast? Those are only like 50 or 60 mile per hour winds. Could you imagine how much damage we could have had if a Category 2 hurricane hit Oahu? Okay, and then only 2 or 3 months later, in October, we had Anna coming by, okay? And it was almost like a worst case projection because any hurricane system, the most damage occurs on the right front quadrant of the hurricane.
Why the right? Is that the way the wind spins around
Yes,
the equator? It's the toilet bowl phenomenon, right?
Somewhat. It's the Coriolis effect, and the winds are going counterclockwise, okay? So if this hurricane is moving forward, say the hurricane's moving 10 miles an hour, and the winds are going 100 miles per hour, in the right front quadrant they add, so it's like 110 miles per hour in the right front quadrant. And the left front quadrant, they're subtracting, so it's almost like 90 miles per hour on the left front quadrant.
Interesting.
So the right front quadrant's the most damaging, okay? And what we had with Anna coming through, it had a projected course with the right front quadrant essentially hitting Hawaii County, Maui, and then Oahu. The only reason it missed us is because there was a high pressure system to the northeast, and hurricanes, this National Weather Service always says this, hurricanes hate high pressure. They go to low pressure and they hate high pressure. So because of that high pressure system to the northeast, it swerved a little to the west and essentially spared the Big Island, Maui, and Oahu. But if, you know, I'm just giving you an example. In 2014, we have the potential for very significant damage and all these bullets flying around us that are missing us. So people should not think that hurricanes are rare and will never hit Oahu. That's just not
No,
the case.
just au contraire.
Yeah.
If I give you 1,000 hurricanes that all go around us and never touch
Yeah.
us, the 1,001st is more likely to touch us.
That's right.
And that's what we have here.
Yeah.
Every nice day is a day closer to a bad storm that affects Hawaii.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think it's pretty serious. And then you have another dynamic working, and that's climate change,
Yes.
which tends to make these storms, stronger and more unpredictable.
Yes.
So the chances, in the next, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 years of Oahu, where all the population and all the vulnerability is, having a bad storm is pretty high, don't you think?
Yes, it is. And like you said, climate change has several factors involved in it. There could be a little sea level rise involved in it, and that'll make coastal areas more susceptible to flooding with higher waves and more intense flooding. And then, there's also a suggestion that it may increase the frequency and intensity of the storms. Most of the data indicates that that may be the case, but there are a lot of factors involved, so it is complicated with regard to the impact of climate change.
Okay, well, it's really important to know about this. It's important to, look at this book, get this book, and where can I get this book again?
Okay, it's available for free. One place is at the University of Hawaii Sea Grant, which is at SOEST in the Manoa campus.
School of Ocean, Earth Science, and
Technology at the HIG building. Okay.
Which is, you make a left, right as you see the East-West Center on your right, you make a left.
Yeah.
And then you go down this little first road there behind Holmes Hall with the engineers.
That's right, right
and
behind
there's
Holmes Hall.
SOEST. Yeah.
Okay. And then also, there are 25 partners in the book. So it could be American Red Cross, Hawaii Emergency Management Agency, Honolulu Emergency Management Agency. All of these partners are in the back front cover of the book. A lot of them will have copies of the book, and you could get it there. But if you definitely want it, go to the University of Hawaii Sea Grant at the HIG building.
Yes.
Also, they could get a free copy by downloading it. It's a PDF file, downloadable PDF file for free. And all they have to do is Google Homeowners Handbook to Prepare for Natural Hazards. Now, they're probably gonna, when they do that, they're gonna get 8 different versions of the book, because this book started in Hawaii, but it's now in 8 other states in the US, based off the Hawaii book. We modified it for
different states, for the
So,
mainland.
Yes, so now this book is in Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Texas, Florida, Delaware, and Massachusetts. It's in prep in New Jersey, Washington State, and the Republic of the Marshall Islands, okay? So if they Google Homeowners Handbook to Prepare for Natural Hazards and the state they're interested in, they'll get, Hawaii, they'll get the Hawaii book. But they could also get the other books also, yeah.
Okay, we're going to take a short break. That's Dennis Hwang, H-U-A-N-G. He's with Sea Grant College. We're here on Research in Manoa, covering that subject every Monday from 1 to 2. And we're calling this show Preparing for the Worst, and that is tsunamis, hurricanes, earthquakes, and flood. Does that make your Monday? We'll be right back. We're going to see some slides and photographs of what Dennis has been talking about.
Okay,
Stay
sure.
there.
This is Alice Lee Hagan, host of ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. My show here at ThinkTech Hawaii is every Thursday from 3 to 4 in the afternoon. I bring in interesting guests from Hawaii, the mainland, and hopefully international guests in the future. Do join us on Thursday from 3 to 4 p.m. ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. Aloha.
Aloha, my name is Paul Jackson, better known as PJ, and my local interest is in sports. I have my own sports radio show at KWAI AM 1080 that you can stream live. I also have my own website, pjsportsradio.com. We have live guests in studio, and we talk about discussions and topics that everyone wants to know locally here on the islands. We cover everything from surfing to basketball to whatever's going on locally, sports-wise. We try to do our best and cover the topics in depth as much as we can. Once again, thank you for joining PJ here on Hawaii Sports Update. Mahalo.
Aloha, I'm Kili'i Akina, president of the Grassroot Institute and host on Ehana Kako, a weekly program on the ThinkTech Hawaii broadcast network. Ehana Kako means let's work together. Think of the sad alternative, let's not work together. Here in Hawaii, with all of our diversity and the richness of the people, it's important for us to come together around issues on the basis of what's right and what's good and what's going to serve the common good. And that's what we try to do at Ehana Kako. Every week we interview movers and shakers, people in government, business, and other sectors of society to talk about how to create together a better government, economy, a better world here in Hawaii that can bless the rest of the world. I thank you for your attention to ThinkTech Hawaii, and we look forward to seeing you every Monday, 2 to 3 p.m. on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. We're Ehana Kako, and we wish you well. Aloha.
Okay, we're back. We're live here on ThinkTech. That is Research in Manoa with Dennis Hwang, H-W-A-N-G. He's with Sea Grant College, and we're talking about preparing for the worst, namely tsunamis, hurricanes, earthquakes, and flood. God, it sounds like something out of the Bible, doesn't it? All these things happen.
Yeah.
And you can actually ameliorate some of the risk there.
Yeah.
So we have a bunch of slides, and we'll play the slides. This is from your slideshow.
Okay.
And you can describe to our audience what's on the screen. So you can look over there and tell us what's on the screen.
Sure.
There we go. All right.
Okay, that's simply a travel time. The book covers tsunamis, so it's just a travel time chart depending on where the earthquake zones are, whether it be Alaska, Japan, or Chile, how long it takes for the wave to hit Oahu. We encourage everyone to have an evacuation plan that considers where they are, whether at their school, at their house or work, and whether it's an event from Japan, Alaska, or South America.
So if it's going to be 5 hours, then you have 5 hours to get
Yes.
to your
And,
evacuation destination.
That's correct. Our worst case, what they're thinking now is the worst case scenario is something from Alaska. It's going to take four and a half hours to come by. There's some recent studies that show a large part of that earthquake generating zone there has been locked up for a while.
Yeah.
So it could create a large event.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, one question that comes to mind is, where do you go now that you have a plan? Where's your destination? Get in your car, I guess,
Well,
and you go somewhere. But where do you go?
okay. For tsunami evacuation, and again, it's very important to have a plan for tsunami and a hurricane. For tsunami evacuation, go to your phone book, your most recent phone book, and stay outside of the evacuation zone in there. You'll see the yellow pages where the tsunami evacuation zones are. The tricky part is they just created a new zone for a large magnitude event off Alaska, and so they've created another zone. And so where you get that is, it's best to go to, say you're on Oahu, go to Honolulu Emergency Management Agency, go to their website for the tsunami evacuation zones.
Well, I would add that
Yeah.
Going to the website is probably a real good bet
Yeah.
if you don't have a landline or a phone book.
Right.
That phone book is, a lot of people are getting off landlines.
Yeah.
They don't get a phone book. They better learn how to find this on the web.
Yeah. Now, one thing people got to remember too is it's different from a tsunami and a hurricane. So, say you're a weak frame, single wall house in the middle of Oahu. You're going to think, oh, I'm outside the tsunami evacuation zone. I don't need to evacuate because this hurricane coming by. No, that's not the case. You may need to evacuate because the wind is too strong, okay? So tsunami, what's driving the evacuation is the water and wave inundation. For a hurricane, it's the water wave inundation, or it could be the wind itself. It's too strong for the structure of your house. Supposedly, with some of these retrofits that we put in this book, you'll be more likely to shelter in place.
Yeah, so that's a big question. You have to make
Yeah.
that decision.
Yes.
You know, if you live, you know, in an area where the wind is coming, maybe you have to leave. If you live for a hurricane, if you live near the water and it's a tsunami, maybe you have to leave.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can stay. This is an important decision.
Yes, yes. So they gotta,
Can they call you up, Dennis?
they call
Hi,
me up a
Dennis,
lot.
I've seen your warning. What do I
No,
do now, Dennis?
The watches and warnings come from National Weather Service, the Pacific, for a hurricane or a tropical storm, and they'll come from Pacific Tsunami Warning Center for a tsunami.
Here's a slide talks about a 6-hour warning, and they're talking about this is a wind warning.
Oh, okay. Now this is a slide in the book. It just shows Hurricane Iniki over Kauai, and a lot of people on Oahu, they go, "Oh, I survived Iniki. You know, I'm prepared. I don't need to prepare." But real wrong, because the real strength of the winds, the water, the waves did not hit. You know, Oahu did have some impacts, but the real impacts were on Kauai. So don't think that just because you survived Iniki on Oahu, you're prepared. You know, you need to prepare properly on Oahu.
How do you integrate this with the other problems that will come? For example, if Oahu got hit, you know, you have all kinds of infrastructure here, power, water,
Right.
who knows what, roadways, gee, everything. And you may not have traffic lights or street lights.
Right.
And so, you know, there's more than just your roof involved.
Right, right. Well, this is why you need to prepare, because it's really, you know, we've been to Louisiana after Katrina, and it's like, after that event where 200,000 houses were damaged or destroyed, the government came to realize they can't do everything. So it's got to be the government, it's got to be all organizations, it's got to be all individuals. If all the individuals are prepared, you're a step ahead, because now, say there's power lines are down and the roads can't be transited. At least you could stay in your house. You have your emergency supplies. You have a roof on your house. You know, it's a lot better than if all the infrastructure was gone and all the housing was also. And the other thing too is a beautiful day like today, that's the perfect time to do a lot of these measures. They're not that hard to do. You could get insurance credits to do them a lot of times. You know, I always tell homeowners, they're always constantly improving their house, you know, renovating it or trying to add some new things to it. But I always tell them, before you make it pretty, make it strong, okay? Yeah. So that's what, and it's not that hard to do. Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's see some more pictures.
Okay.
Oh, that's not strong.
Okay, now that is a house in Kapoho after a cell hit. That house had both wind damage and water damage. It was so close to the coastline, they did have a lot of storm surge knocking the house down. Sometimes, okay, yeah.
Okay, she's going to just put pictures on, and we'll just take a look at what's there, and you can identify whatever comes up.
Sure, sure.
Yeah. So, you know, it seems to me that that we haven't seen anything like the potential risk we have, even in Iki.
Right.
You lose a few, you know, roofs, but the infrastructure for community infrastructure wasn't really damaged that much.
Yeah.
And people, you know, people found a way to. I don't think there were any fatalities at all. But when you have a serious climate change type of storm, with the winds higher than we've seen, you're going to have fatalities. You're going to need medical care. You're going to need to find, you know, places in the community where you can go to, not only for shelter, but for medical care, for food, water.
Right. And
it may last longer than we think, because the community is not resilient enough to actually come back to life so quickly.
Right.
Is that covered in the book?
Well, it's covered a little. You know, it is, you know, for a community to be resilient, needs to be all organizations involved. That means the government, the businesses have to be prepared. You know, business continuity plans, and they have to have emergency plans. And organizations like American Red Cross and non-government organizations, they need to be prepared. This book really covers the individuals, homeowners, only because we recognized a need for it. You know, I think we mentioned that if something like a Niki hit, well, when it hit Kauai, there were somewhat like 7,000 houses damaged or destroyed. If something like that were to hit Oahu, we're talking about possibly 50,000. Now, you know, a lot of people don't like to think about it, but it could happen. You know, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, we hadn't experienced a lot of these events, and people would be saying, "Oh, you're just raising, you know, undue concerns." But you look at some of the events that have happened. Katrina in Louisiana, where 200,000 houses were damaged or destroyed. Similar amount in New York and New Jersey after Sandy. You look at the Japan tsunami and all the lives lost there. You look at the Typhoon Haiyan, Yolanda in the Philippines, where they had the strongest winds, and whether that's related to climate change, it's hard to say, but they've never had a 195-mile-per-hour wind system make landfall in the history of the U.S.
We're going to have that. We're going to have that. I mean,
so,
the world is changing.
Yeah, so, and it's not that hard. I think the government's doing a good job in a way, because they are changing the building codes. Every reiteration of the building code, the houses are getting stronger and stronger, and it puts us in a better and better position.
So now these are required?
Yes. After EVA in '82, these were required on Oahu by 1988. It took 6 years from the change of building code to go from EVA to change the building code to require hurricane clips. Not this specific clip, but a similar type of clip. And then after Aniki in '92, I think it was they changed the building code again in 1995 on Oahu to require much stronger construction. And now they've even changed it again with the new state building code. The new state building code requires a continuous load transfer path where everything's connected, like you said, the hip bone's connected to the whatever. Okay, every connection, every intersection of the house is strongly connected. And then it also requires either window protection or a safe room in the house, yeah.
Can we talk about tsunamis for a minute?
Sure.
You know, we've had tsunami warnings here in Oahu a couple times in my recollection.
Yeah.
And it never happened. It never was realized. That doesn't mean it couldn't be, though.
Yes.
Even though Oahu faces south and it's not, you know, customarily there's not that much tsunami activity from the south, but it could happen off the Big Island, come around and hit Oahu from the south. And the question I put to you is, I've been operating on the understanding that if you were, and this happened in Asia, in that big tsunami there in
Japan,
in Thailand.
Okay. Oh, the Indonesian tsunami in 2004.
Yes.
Yeah.
That if you're on the ground, you're in big trouble. If you're on the first story of a two-story house, you're in better shape. And if you're on the second story, you're in better shape yet. So if I'm in an office building downtown, if I'm here, you know, we're on the ground floor and the tsunami, I mean, the water is only a block away, we're in trouble. But if we're on the second or third or fifth floor, right, we're better off, right?
Yes. Well, again, you know, it's a lot of times, the tsunami could be, you know, in Indonesia, it was only the plate that failed was only, it only took like 30 minutes for a huge wave to make it to the coastline, okay? So a lot of times when it's something that big and so sudden, it's very hard to evacuate, and it's hard to evacuate distance-wise, but a lot of times they do what they call a vertical evacuation. So,
what is that?
Vertical evacuation means going up into a tall building. Now, I'm going to explain this very shortly, but Fortunately, in Hawaii, except for the case where there's like a locally generated tsunami, but most of the very large ones around the Pacific Rim, they're going to give us anywhere between 4.5 hours to 16 hours of warning time. Give us enough time to evacuate. Now, one of the problems is like on a Waikiki, where do they evacuate to? Because it could lead to a traffic jam. So the old guidance before for a tsunami was if you're in a 6-story building or higher, go to the third story or above, okay? But now with the new modeling and the potential for a super earthquake and tsunami, like the one they had in Japan in 2011 and Indonesia in 2004, the new guidance is if you're in a 10-story building or higher, go to the 4th-story or above, okay?
Don't stay on the 10th floor because
You can't stay in the, but stay off.
Oh, you want to be a little higher.
Higher. You want to be above the the 4th floor or above. That's if there's like that's the general guidance for vertical evacuation now in Waikiki.
Yeah. Oh, how interesting.
Yes, and the reason is the taller the building, generally the sturdier it is.
This is a matter of engineering.
Yeah, it's got to. The taller it is, the more weight it needs to support, and therefore, by gaining stories in the building, it's making it a stronger building, more able to withstand potential tsunami.
Okay, that's Dennis Hwang, H-W-A-N-G, at UH Sea Grant College. Here we are in research in Manoa, and we are preparing for the worst, that is tsunamis, hurricanes, earthquakes, and floods, and they're all different. And
Yes.
so you have to have like 4 brains to figure out which way to go.
No.
We'll be right back after the short break.
Okay.
Inspired by an ancient culture, classical Chinese dance, vigorous physicality, timeless stories, 5,000 years of Chinese music and dance, Shen Yun presents authentic Chinese culture. Coming to Blaisdell Concert Hall, May 8th and 9th. Tickets at shenyun.com or call 808-792-3919.
Hi, I'm your host on ThinkTech Asia, Bill Sharp. I look forward to you joining us each Monday between 4 and 5 o'clock when we film right here in our studio in downtown Honolulu. The show, ThinkTech Asia, focuses on contemporary events in Asia. And by Asia, we mean anything from Hawaii, south to Australia and New Zealand, west to Pakistan, and as far north as the Russian Far East. Clearly, this is one of the most economically dynamic centers of the world, and we bring you up to date on what's going on in a whole host of countries in this very vital region. We look forward to seeing you. Aloha.
Okay, we're back. We're live. We're here on a Monday. Here in research in Manoa, we're preparing for the worst: tsunamis, hurricanes, earthquakes, and floods, with Dennis Hwang, who specializes in this and who effectively wrote the book on Homeowners Handbook to Prepare for Natural Hazards. There it is, Kay. And you can get that free, either on the web or at one of the sponsoring organizations in the front cover. Okay, how did you get into this, Dennis? I mean, what did you do to deserve this? Right?
Well, it was really just what we thought was a need. After Niki, there was a lot, like we said, a lot of damage all through the island, and we recognized that it could have been there's 8 times more structures on Oahu than there is on Kauai. It could have been 8 times worse on Oahu. And no one was really thinking about it or what to do with regard to it, how to prepare. And we don't want to make it sound like you have to think about these disasters. Hopefully they'll never happen, and your house will be nevertheless stronger for it. But very simple things to do, you could do, and you could get some benefits for doing it too, like discounts on your hurricane insurance.
Sure, and insurance companies do respect that.
Yes.
They say if you put these clips on and so forth, you get a lower premium?
Yes, it depends on your company, because each policy is a little different, but you put in hurricane clips, for instance, and you could get possibly 10 to 12% off your hurricane insurance. So we know people that have spent $400 or $500 to put in the clips. If they do it themselves, it'll cost a little more to hire a contractor, and they'll save like $150, $200 a year on their hurricane insurance. You put in window protection, you could get possibly 15% off your hurricane insurance. And it's cumulative too. So if you do both hurricane clips and window protection, possibly 25 to.
Here we are, we have a picture of a clip. That looks
Okay,
pretty
sure.
strong to me.
Yeah, that's again, that's this clip. There's a step-by-step guide on how to install this. Generally, for simple installation, most people, two people could possibly do it on 2 Saturdays, put it in. Material cost maybe $300. To hire a contractor, maybe $2,000.
And you need a drill or a drill with one of those screwdriver tips on it and just put it right in real quick.
Right, you need an impact wrench. It does take lag screws that go into that.
Okay, all right. What other, we got any other photograph? Oh, there we go.
Okay, those are just the different types of hurricane clips. There's the one with the arrow pointing on it. That's the H2.5. That's something that's very common in building maybe 15 or 20 years ago. Now they actually build with something a little stronger than that. But again, purpose is to keep your roof on the house for high wind events. And you even saw a lot of roof damage this year with the wind events and
you know, it
during
just strikes
Valentine's
me
Day.
that it's not only the roof comes off your house, as in the case of my in-laws.
Yeah.
You know, in Kauai, the roof could come off your house, and there's plenty of places for it to land without hurting anybody.
Right.
But in Oahu, the roof comes off your house, and there's plenty of people around who it can hurt.
That's right.
So you don't want debris flying around the city, and that's what would happen if these roofs weren't connected.
That's exactly what you're talking about. This is windborne debris on Kauai after Niki. Okay, so these things, there's a pallet there, a lot of roofing material. It's almost like missiles.
Yes.
And if you go outside during this event, you know, it'd be
Chop
very
your head
dangerous.
off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, any more pictures? Okay.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
you know, I wanted to talk about the whole landscape, if you can use that expression, of services. You're not operating in a vacuum.
Right.
This book and all the things you can do from this book is only one slice of the pie. You have all these emergency services going on. You have everybody trying to put Humpty Dumpty back together again.
Right.
And despite your wish that we don't have this, your hopefully that we don't have this, there is at least a fair chance we will have this.
Yeah.
So who's in charge at the moment of truth? And what is your role at the moment of truth?
Okay. Well, at the moment of truth, a lot of people think government is going to come to the rescue. But that's not the case, because there's so many things going to happen. You know, if there's an event where there's thousands of houses that are at risk, the government is not going to be able to respond to each person's request. So the moment of truth is really you. Only you can protect yourself adequately. I mean, we provide these guidance documents. It's not that hard to do. They're simple retrofits. Things you would do, when you paint your house or you put in a new cabinet. You may hire a carpenter, and that carpenter could put in the hurricane clips at the same time. It's like what your doctor says, eat well, exercise, right? And when there's a health event, the moment of truth is really you. How do you prepare? And are you prepared for the event?
Yeah, and the other thing you mentioned earlier, I'd like to visit that this is the last thing we can talk about, we're out of time.
Yeah.
Is that, a lot of people go into the flight reaction and say, oh my God, we're gonna have something bad, and they run outside into the car, and they get in the car, and they're gonna go somewhere, but they don't know where they're gonna go. And that sounds like a bad idea to me in general.
Right.
How do you comment on that?
Well, that's all part of evacuation planning. You should have a plan before a hurricane, before a tsunami. The book will go in step-by-step guide on how to plan for these events. And so when something happens, you don't have to react and make bad decisions. Remember when Estelle and Julio were coming by? all the people were going to the store and all the water was out. And we always tell people, when you're properly prepared, the goal is not to have to go to the store for water or food or to the gas station for fuel when they call a watch or warning.
Yeah.
You know, you gotta be prepared for those things.
Yeah, well, and that might have been an option 20 years ago, but it is no longer an option today because of climate change, because we have unpredictable weather and it's worse and there's not too much we can do about it. And we have to be prepared because we know that the community is going to be under huge stress, and that means all of society, all of civilization here in these islands is at risk when this kind of thing happens. So Dennis, it's a great contribution you've made. And thanks for coming down and explaining it to us.
Thank you,
I
Jay.
hope we can do it again.
Sure.
And as I hope it doesn't happen anytime soon, but
Yes.
hey, we got a risk here. Dennis Hwang, UH Seabright College, here on research in Manoa, preparing for the worst in terms of tsunamis, hurricanes, earthquakes, and floods. And thank you, Dennis.
Thank you, Jay.
Aloha.
Nice to be here.